Welcome to the Disability Approval Path.
Hello and welcome back to Social Security and Disability, the Approval Path with Deborah Spector, lead attorney and managing partner at Spector & Lenz. Deborah has spent over 40 years helping clients navigate complex disability and public benefits issues. I'm Chelsea Reynolds, and today we're covering a change in social security law that impacts many Illinois public employees. This is the repeal of the Government Pension Offset, GPO, and the Windfall Elimination Provision, WEP. So welcome to Episode 6, GPO and WEP, Repeal Explained, Social Security Fairness Act, and what it means for public employees. Hello again, Deborah.
Hello, Chelsea. Good to see you.
We're going to dive into this super complex topic and have a little fun. How about that?
Well, we will. And this is really an amazing topic that I would not have predicted a year ago we'd ever be discussing. And it's kind of arcane, and we're hoping that it's pretty much resolved. But I want to explain it because there still are workers who are affected by it. And there's a lot of misinformation about it.
What were the Government Pension Offset and the Windfall Elimination Provisions? What were they?
Well, back to our theory, Social Security, now we're talking about retirement, disability, all kinds of Social Security. Social Security is an income replacement program. Doesn't replace all of your income, but a portion of your income. It was established in the 30s during the Depression to make sure that Americans had a minimum income if they've paid into this government insurance program. Forever, if you were a worker who worked in private industry and paid Social Security, and you worked for another governmental entity that didn't take Social Security out of your paycheck, and you got a pension from that entity, then your Social Security would be reduced. Got it? So the theory is, it's kind of a double dipping theory, but not really, because the worker did the work for both. And the classic, and I'm in Chicago, the classic is a Chicago firefighter. Mm-hmm. So a Chicago firefighter pays in to his pension fund forever. Social Security is not taken out of his paycheck. And if you look at his Social Security earnings record, it's 00000 for Social Security coverage. Medicare is covered. But the guy also will often get another job. My favorite is a captain who we're representing, and he got security gigs at the great Chicago sports stadiums. So he would go run security for the Blackhawks or the Bears. Now, those jobs paid Social Security. They didn't pay very much cash, but he collected his quarters of coverage. So when he became disabled, no problem getting him on Social Security. He was quite disabled. If I recall, it was a Parkinson's case. However, his benefit rate was reduced because he got his firefighter pension, a disability pension. Well, knock me off my chair. We never thought this would change. That's the Windfall Elimination Provision. We'll talk about that first. We never thought it would change. Lo and behold, as of January 1st of 2025, we don't have it anymore. The government pension offset is a tiny bit more complex. In the government pension offset, you have a spousal benefit that's reduced. If you also, it's actually the Social Security that's reduced if you have a spousal benefit. And that's the situation in which you have a couple. And one worked for a governmental entity, and now she's collecting, let's say, a widow's benefit. Well, she's not going to get the husband's full Social Security because of her governmental pension. These things, which we thought would never be eliminated because it would cost so much to eliminate them, were eliminated. January 1st, 2025. It was one of the last pieces of Social Security legislation in the Biden administration, and we all fell off our chairs. I've been doing this forever, and I would constantly get calls from teachers, firemen, policemen, all kinds of state, local, county employees saying, when are you ever going to do anything about this? And I can only say, write to your Congress. There's nothing that can be done about it. Well, it's gone. Now, it affected when they changed the law to like 2.8 million people across the country were affected, but only about 38% of state, local, county government workers don't pay into Social Security. So it doesn't apply across the board. A lot of governmental entities would also have their employees pay into Social Security. I don't know what their motivation was, but the effect was to avoid this problem. But the good news is that the law changed as of January 1st of this year, and there are retroactive payments available to workers who had their Social Security depressed last year, going as far back as January 1st of 2024. Okay, but that's assuming that somebody was eligible each of those months. So not everybody got a year of back benefits, but a lot of people did. All of a sudden, there were checks. Now, how much depends on how much your benefits are. So it could range from a very small adjustment and a small back benefit to, for some workers, well over $1,000 a month. And it was significant. And I don't want to minimize the importance of this. By the time someone's disabled or retired and their income is not likely to have a substantial increase for the rest of their lives, an extra $500 a month can make a big difference. And certainly, during this period we're living through of the high cost of living, inflation that's not quite under control, an extra $200, $300, $400, $500, an extra $1,000 a month really makes a difference to retired public workers. It's a big deal.
For sure. Prices I just saw the list of prices right now, and the percentage they've gone up since January is, 10, 15% for some items in the grocery store. So this repeal took place in January 1st. Just so I'm not mixing up the terms, what does Social Security Fairness Act do?
Well, that was the act. That's the
Okay.
Repeal Act. So the Social Security Fairness Act is the statute which, among other things, repealed the Windfall Elimination Provision and the government pension offset, and essentially says, fine, you can have your Social Security, you can have your public pension. We're not going to reduce your Social Security because of it.
That helps
and that's
clear it
what's
up.
called the Fairness Act. Now,
Okay, perfect.
it was passed at the end of 2024, fall of 2024. It was effective January of 2025. And those of us who've been around forever predicted, well, it's going to take them a long time to figure out how to fix this one, right? It's complicated. And in fact, Social Security they issue press releases and memos and stuff all the time. And they said, we're thinking it's going to take us about a year. This was early in 2025. We think it's going to take us about a year to get this straightened out and get people their money. Well, credit to the new administration. It was done almost instantly. I think, I don't want to misspeak, but maybe February, March, April, boom. People were getting big deposits. I actually have an employee who is a retired public university professor and a retired private university professor whose Social Security was affected by this, who popped up one day and said, extra $600 in my check, and I just had a big deposit. So it affects people across the board, from very low-paid workers to high-paid workers. And the new administration, even before we had a new commissioner, affected it immediately. It was great. Now, there's still some people dangling out there. There are always outliers, but there are still some people dangling. So if you think that you are being subject to the offset, and I'll tell you how to figure it out, but if you think you're being subject to the offset, contact Social Security. I'll talk about that in a minute. To figure out if you're affected by the offset, you look at your award notice or benefit statement, and it will tell you your primary insurance amount, your basic Social Security rate is X, but because of your public pension, we're reducing it to Y. You shouldn't see those anymore. And if yours still says that, contact Social Security. Okay, easier said than done. Social Security is going through some difficulty, some challenges, as we say, right? With public contact. And we use the phone, but I have employees whose jobs are essentially calling the government and sitting on hold. So it requires patience. I always say, make a cup of coffee, make a pot of tea, get ready, and stay on hold till you get somebody. You can also fax your local office, although sometimes the faxes are not promptly dealt with. And then there are other levels of communication that you can use. Walking in doesn't work the way it used to, walking into a local Social Security office. Some offices accommodate it. Some offices stop people at the door and say, make an appointment. So you just have to try a variety of techniques. But if you think you're subject to the offset, you shouldn't be, absolutely get in touch with SSA immediately.
Okay. A lot of good tips there. For retroactive payments, we've got how far back can they go? And then how large might these be?
Well, we just talked about this. They go back potentially to January of 2024. People, and they can be up to, $12,000, $15,000 because the new benefit checks at the higher rate were paid out for people who were adjusted in April of this year. So, you could be looking at, hundreds, a couple of thousand, up to as much as $12,000, $15,000 in back benefits.
What if someone never applied for benefits because GPO or WEP would have reduced them to zero?
Apply now.
Okay.
Apply before our podcast is over. Just
Get
go
on it.
ahead and apply. And that's a great place for, I'm not even going to call it a pro tip. It's just a tip. Social Security maintains an outstanding website. Their website is really, really good. It's www.ssa.gov and has a number of excellent hyperlinks. And you can open an online Social Security account to check your benefit rate and your earnings record. You can do all kinds of things. One of the things you can do on that site is start an application for benefits. So if you were dissuaded from applying for benefits because you thought, well, I only worked a few part-time jobs and my retirement rate would only be $300 a month and it's wiped out by my firefighter rate, apply now. Just do it now. And you can get up to 12 months of retroactive benefits. I hope I'm saying that correctly. And you can definitely have your check restored. So absolutely do it. And I do have a quick anecdote. A few weeks ago, I had a call from a woman I know in my community, and she called to say she was confused. Now, again, and you're going to wonder who I hang out with, right? She's like a computer wizard university professor, and English is not her first language. And her husband might be a mathematician, and she's not listening. So their heads are in the clouds. And she called and said, we'll call him Igor. I'm worried, Deb. Igor has a new Social Security rate that's like $800 higher than it used to be. What's going on? And I questioned her. We looked at the documents, and I said, they adjusted for the Fairness Act. He's entitled to it. He can keep it. But it scared the heck out of him. A naturalized citizen, not born in this country. This is a complex system. And so why is the government sending me so much money all of a sudden? And it was really a lovely conversation and, to put their mind at rest about this. Yeah.
You've given a lot of actionable tips in this episode. What would be some advice for families or spouses who might be affected from this change?
Okay, number one, check we should all have these online accounts. I don't know if you're old enough to remember this, but we used to get annually like a bifold form from the government. It was white with a green border, and it gave us estimates of our disability benefit rate, our early retirement rate, our full retirement rate, provided a summary of our earnings over the years, and it was all your information in one place. Well, those don't really go out anymore. And now we have to have an online account to access that information electronically. And again, you can open the account through that website I mentioned, and you should be checking it periodically. Make sure, there's no reason to be suspicious, but to make sure all of your taxes are being recorded and get a sense as you're doing your retirement planning of what you can expect at full retirement age, what you could expect if you took retirement early, what would happen if you became disabled. So check your online account. And you can always ask Social Security for a benefit statement. It's a little bit laborious to get through and get it, but if you can do it electronically, all the better. Another thing that I want to repeat that Social Security warns the public about all the time, but, and I'm increasingly aware of it, avoid scams. If you get anything at all suspicious involving your Social Security, be very careful. Don't open links, be cautious. However, that said, Social Security is also entering the 21st century. So for the first time in my practice, I'm seeing the government email my clients. And I'm just telling everybody, be very cautious. And I tell my clients, forward it to me. Let me look at it before I tell you to respond. But be cautious about emails, scams, online phishing, that kind of thing. And I'm afraid that this is a tip we're going to have to remind people about a lot.
The scamsters are very sophisticated these days, and emails can look just like a professional official email. So
you bet. I think the days when we could detect them quickly because the content was misspelled are gone, and they're very sophisticated. But as I said, the government's now emailing people. And so we have to be very, very cautious. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot to unpack and learn from this episode. We'll have links below. This change does mark a huge victory for many of Illinois' public servants who will finally receive the full Social Security benefits they've earned. So if you're not sure if this applies to you, no worries. Connect with Deborah at spectorandlens.com for help reviewing your benefits or filing any updates. And be sure to like, subscribe, and leave us a review if you found today's episode helpful. Thanks again, Deborah.
Thank you, Chelsea. It was a pleasure.
Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.